Today is Monday, August 19th, 2024. This is episode 143 of The Tech Jawn from Columbus, Ohio. I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. I got to add another user to our car insurance. My oldest daughter just got her driver's license last week. So, yay, she got her license. Oh, my insurance is about to go up.
I know, man. My 20-year-old had a little fender bender where she bumped into someone's car and they wasted no time. My agent actually called and said, you know what, you might want to change your insurance company because you're about to get crushed.
That's crazy how we all these years pay all of this money to car insurance, particularly. The second something happens towards like, yo, I've been a customer for 20 years. I've been paying faithfully. I haven't missed a payment. Can I use some of that money? They're like, sure, you can use it, but we about to charge you a ridiculous amount of money going forward. It's just like the insurance company, the insurance industry in general, but specifically car insurance. Because in my opinion, I feel like that's the insurance that we use the most out of home insurance, outside of medical insurance, but insurance on inanimate objects, right? Car, house, whatever the case may be. People use their cars all the time, and we pay a ton of money to car insurance. And I think it's just sickening that as soon as I go to use some of that money that I've been paying faithfully, I've paid enough in car insurance to have fully paid for at least 5 or 6 cars.
Right.
And the fact that I get in an accident on just one car to where I need just a portion of that money to fix the one car, I'm no longer a good customer. And as a result, they got to raise my rates up to, I don't know, compensate for the fact that I got into this accident. If I was president, that'd be one of the first things I do. We are forget cutting the Department of Education like the Republicans want to do. I'm cutting car insurance companies.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. So, our insurance company, they give you that one, that one where if you haven't had any accidents or anything like that in a while, nothing changes. But we had to put a claim on our insurance because someone sideswiped my daughter in the parking lot. So it was way more than the deductible. So we had to go and get that fixed. And then probably within 18 months, she actually has a little fender bender. And I knew it was about to go down when my insurance agent called and started off the conversation. So what had happened was, and I knew then that it's like, oh goodness. So she told us, it's like, yeah, we just went ahead and it was time to do a review anyway. So we just went ahead and did it maybe a month early, and just to see if we can find you some some better insurance because your rates are about to skyrocket. And so I know where you are, man. I feel for you.
And I get it. If you're a new customer and you've only been paying insurance for like a year or two, and you may have, let's just say, racked up $1,000 worth of car insurance payments, premiums, whatever you want to call it, and you get into an accident and the accident costs $20,000. I get it. I've only been paying for a couple years. I don't nearly have as much banked in the insurance company as far as payments to cover any sort of repairs. So run up my rates, run up my premium, whatever the case may be. But if I've been with one company for like 20 years, it's like, if the accident is $20,000 and I've been making $20,000 worth of payments, just come out of the amount. And then I'm now $20,000 less. And if I do it again, and then I'll deplete, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes for people who are listening. If I deplete to my, amount that I've paid in payments, and that's no longer the amount of how much the repair is going to be on my car, then you run my stuff skyrocket. It's just like, it's crazy that I pay all this in car insurance or just insurance in general, health insurance. I've been paying for years and years and years and years for health insurance. And I get into a medical situation and it's just like, we don't know. Well, we got to, it's like, come on, man. I've got at least $100,000 in there that y'all can't front me $10,000 for this, colonoscopy. It's like, come on, man. Y'all tripping.
I don't want to call it a racket, but it sure feels like it. So, but anyway, man, it was just last week that we recorded, but it seems like it's been forever because there was just text story after text story after text story after text story that has been dropping. The first one is just a little quick one we could talk about because we talked about this on a couple times here on the Tech John. You remember that company ShotSpotter, that they put those microphones in cities and they listen to hear gunshots and stuff like that.
They did it in Chicago, right?
Yeah, they've done it in multiple cities.
Okay.
But I think when we talked about it before was how they were losing their contracts, but they were still keeping the technology turned on and still giving the information to the police, even though the city wasn't necessarily paying for it. We've talked about that before. But this one is Pittsburgh. City of Pittsburgh has decided that they ain't really feeling ShotSpotter anymore because it looks like, at least according to what's happening in Pittsburgh, the technology is just not that accurate. That they're saying that it's less than 20% of the time when they trigger or they hear gunshots, are the police even involved in it or get involved or find anything. So it's like, why are we giving you all this money to, for it not to work, for it not to actually be providing us a service? So I just put it in here because it is an organization we've talked about on multiple occasions. And as I said, Pittsburgh is like, no, we really ain't feeling y'all. So we can go ahead and end this contract. Now, what I want to look for is when we come back in a few months and hear that even though Pittsburgh is ending their contract with ShotSpotter, they say, we already got the stuff installed. Power's not that expensive. Will they just keep running it? Or did they get enough bad press the last time that happened in Chicago that they'll go ahead and shut this stuff down and even uninstall it, take it down off of the towers and stuff like that?
I mean, if you are a city and you've heard through the grapevine that even though you cancel your contract or stop doing business, they still collecting information, they still giving it to it. I try too. I'd cancel my contract as well and see if they keep recording and keep sending stuff. But again, that goes to the ultimate point though. The technology is just not that helpful. I'm gonna read this this passage here. At best, officers are being, quote, informed by the tech that a shot may have been fired somewhere in the proximity of ShotSpotter's mics. There's almost zero chance that these alerts are on what any reasonable person would call, quote unquote, actionable intelligence. The fog of war isn't dispelled by this tech either. As the Trib Alive report notes, the police chief himself doesn't know where ShotSpotter's detectors are located. So it's just like, it ain't really helpful. You don't have any sort of say as in where these things are placed. And then when they do hear something, it may give you an approximate location, but that's it. It's just like, do cops just go there and stand around and look around and wait for some more shots or something? It's like, how do you actionize, or whatever the word is? How do you act on this information? I mean, because soon the police show up, I'm pretty sure the gunshots are going to stop. So maybe that's a benchmark place to start, but I don't think it's enough for them to be spending $10 million on it. And again, like I mentioned, don't have any sort of say so where they are. And they don't have any sort of reports that say, oh, crime has gone down, or police have been able to do these many more arrests because of this technology. They ain't got the information. So it's like, we can't keep it.
$10 million. That's the thing. I mean, this is, they're not spending little sums of money on this. It was it's a lot of money. So if you're not going to get the bang for your buck, so to speak, I guess Pittsburgh is doing the right thing here. But it's interesting because we have reported on, I think this is the third time we've talked about ShotSpotter. It has never been good. It has always been something that you're losing a contract or you've lost a contract and you still out here running these scans. And as I said, the big thing here was that Pittsburgh's put out just how inaccurate it is. It's like, yeah, we're giving you all this money, and it's like, hey, I'm paraphrasing right now, but ShotSpotter calls the police and say, hey, somebody fired a gun. Where at? Oh, somewhere in the city.
Somewhere around there, down the street.
We just wanted to let y'all know. We'll holler later. So yeah, it's I don't know how much longer this is going to continue to happen, if they're going to continue to get contracts, or if their technology will have to improve, because it's like you're paying a lot of money to be made aware that a gunshot happened and it doesn't really tell you where, or it's not leading to arrest or anything like that. So we'll have to come back and see what ShotSpotter is doing probably in the next 6 months. It seems like that's, we talk about them about every 6 months or so. But this is this next one here is another story. So Eric Schmidt, former CEO and chairman of the board at Google, he had a week. He was at some event at Stanford and having a conversation, and he was asked about Google versus OpenAI specifically. And my man made some comments about how Google's culture is to, basically have folks not work. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not saying exactly what he said because it's a long set of quotes, but he basically is not feeling remote work whatsoever. And one of the reasons that he feels this way is that Google isn't doing what OpenAI is doing is because OpenAI is a startup and these folks is working all kind of crazy hours, 60-hour weeks plus. They're coming into the office every day and they are grinding and they're hustling and they're doing what they need to do to be a top tier company. And Google just isn't doing that. Have people working from home, not coming into the office, all those kinds of things. And Eric Schmidt ended up having to walk these comments back.
Yeah, let me give you the quote. He says Google decided that work-life balance and going home early and working from home was more important than winning. The reason startups work is because people work like hell, quote unquote.
Yeah, so this was a interview that was, or it wasn't just an interview. It was a thing that was happening at Stanford. They recorded it, threw it up on YouTube. It very quickly got 40,000 downloads. Then Eric Schmidt asked Stanford to take the video down. But you know how that happens. Once something's out there, it's out there. So
and even at the he requested a video taken down. I'm like, for what? That's what you said.
Yeah, it's what you said.
It's an opinion. It ain't a fact. It's an opinion from you.
It's his opinion.
So it ain't hurting nobody. It ain't. There's no fallout as a result of this outside of you being embarrassed and having to walk back.
Him being embarrassed. And also, I don't know if Eric Schmidt is trying to go run other companies or anything like that, but the employees may not be feeling him if he were to come in when they know that this is how he feels. But he's not the only one. As I said, he did walk the comments back. And
I don't know if he walked them back. I don't know if this is the full quote. He says, quote, "I misspoke about Google and their work hours. I regret my error." Those are the two quotes that I see. Did he say something?
No,
in length.
He basically said, "I said what I said, but I didn't mean to say it. I didn't mean for y'all to hear it. So I apologize that you heard what I said." That's what I mean by, he walked him back. It's not like he changed his opinion, but he's not the only one. The article that I initially had linked, to this, it mentioned Jamie Dimon, who has come out and said that he wants people back in the office. Elon Musk has said that, that he wants people back in the office. And there are a lot of CEOs and people who are running companies who want their people back in the office. They say that, for every type of survey or every type of report that you can show me where people are more impactful, that they are more productive when they're able to work flex hours and work from home and not come in and all these kind of things. I can show you the exact, opposites of those, where we can show you that, well, when they do come in and they are more impactful and more productive and get more things done. So I don't think that this is really going away. It's just that he probably, I'm not really running Google anymore. There was no reason for me to put that out there, and it's bringing me some flack. So let me walk these back a little bit and hopefully take some of this heat off. But what I wanted to discuss is what is your opinion on this? Do you think that everybody should just be able to work from home? However, that's not even really a fair way to say it, because everyone can't. Some jobs you simply just can't do that.
Right.
But what is your take on this as far as the productivity? Do you think that you can work remotely and be as effective and as productive remotely as you to whether you lose no productivity working remotely as though you were in the office?
Well, short answer is yes, right? There's a quote from the Alphabet Workers Union, and they tend to counter the reason why AI, quote unquote, isn't working based on this scenario, right? It says, flexible work arrangements don't slow down our work. Understaffing, shifting priorities. Let me say that again. We're talking about Google. Shifting priorities, constant layoffs, stagnant wages, and a lack of follow through from management on products, shifting priorities, and a lack of follow through from management on projects. Those speak specifically to the history of Google. These factors slow down Google workers every day. So I'm more inclined to believe that these companies working for a solely for a pure profit, and as a result put workers on the back burner as it relates to wages, as it relates to uh, quality of life, work life balance. But workers are always at the forefront when it's time to lay off. Meanwhile, this guy Eric Schmidt, I'm pretty sure he's not in work in the office 40 hours a week. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk, because the story mentions Elon Musk about how Elon and Jamie Dimon, like you mentioned, JP Morgan Chase CEO, are been complaining about remote work or whatever the case may be. But they claim the workers are the issue, but in reality, that's the first people who they tend to lay off when they need to come up with some money, instead of reducing the CEO who's complaining about work-life balance, instead of reducing his pay and instead of docking him and making him come in the office 40 hours, they lay a bunch of people off. So I personally am not buying it, and I'm pretty sure most people aren't either.
Yeah, I think that if you are an organization where you are trying to stress and just hammer down, we are going to have you come into the office no matter what type situation, and your employees aren't feeling that. They're doing it because they like to be employed, but they're not necessarily feeling it. You're probably not going to see the productivity that you would see that if you were actually allowing them to have a good work-life balance. Now, I'm not going to be one of those folks that says that you should never have to go into the office. You should be able to just work 100% remote. I'm not there. I think these hybrid systems are probably the best way to go. Like, I'll give you an example. My wife, her organization, they require that she comes in 3 times a month. She can go in more, but they want you in at least 3 times per month. And I remember her talking about it. There were people who were up in arms about that, about coming in 3 times a month. Folks who used to come in every day, now they have to come in, 3 times in a calendar month, once every 10 days.
Right. But I get it. So, but the thing to that is, right. So I work 100% remote from home. I've been doing it 10 years almost. The thing about having companies tell their employees you can work 100% remote, and then come back and say, you can come in 3 days a week, or you can come in your wife's case, like 3 times a month. It is ultimately at the pleasure of the company as to what they decide to do. But just do that and say, we have come up with this number that you have to be in work. And that's it. Because the answer to, well, people who had to come into work full time, and now they're remote, and now they're up in arms about coming back to work just 3 times a month. Give me a legitimate reason as to why you chose 3 days a month, and what can I do, or what has to be done in those 3 days that I can't already do at home. And companies are like, it's like, no, scratch that. Just tell me, we want y'all butts back in the office because we said so. And then let people be like, you right, or I'm out.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I really think that it comes down to the culture that you build. Right. And the pandemic changed it. It changed things. We are never going to go back. Well, never is a long time. We are not in the foreseeable future. I mean, it's 2024. People still getting COVID.
Yeah, they are.
They're not necessarily dying from it like they were in 2020 and 2021, and even in the 2022, but folks are still getting it.
Yep. And the numbers are on the rise.
Yeah, it changed how jobs can be done, because we were in a situation where people physically could not go. We were shut down. You couldn't do it. And productivity didn't just die. Companies were still able to get what they needed to get done. They figured it out. And the other part of it is that you have changing demographics. You have a lot of baby boomers who are who are exiting the workforce in droves.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of older Generation X who are exiting the workforce in droves. And they were just wired different. They worked most of their careers before pandemic. They worked most of their careers, in many cases, if you're a baby boomer, before work from home was a thing to the extent that it is now. It's like you kind of had to go in because that's where the office was, and that's where the equipment to do the job was in the office. So this, almost anyone who works with a computer and on the internet being able to work from home, I don't want to say that it's brand new, but it's relatively new. It's something that we couldn't have done what we're doing today 15 years ago. We just didn't have the technology for it. So the times are changing. The other part of it is, as I said, you have a lot of baby boomers that are exiting the workforce. You got a lot of young millennials and a lot of Gen Y. Is that what comes after millennials? They're entering it, and they're just wired different. They are not wired to go into these organizations and just be there forever. That is just not what they do. That's not how they're wired. And if you, as a organization, in my opinion, ignore that, if you ignore the demographics and the psychographics of the people who work for you, and you just ignore how they're wired, and you just say, this is how we've always done it, this is how you're going to do it, what you're going to find is that the ones who can are going to go find a place to work where they like working. And the ones that are left are not necessarily going to be the cream of the crop employees, because they're there because they weren't able to go find, the places elsewhere to go and work. So we've heard those phrases. What is it called? Quiet quitting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is one of those things to where if a person is doing their job description and nothing more than a job description, I don't know why you would call that quiet quitting, but that's what we call it. But you're just not in a situation where you're going to have people who are trying to, I'm not trying to do extra for this company that pays me, that will lay me off in a heartbeat. How do I know this? Because it's happened to me. It's happened to my parents. It's happened to my aunt, my uncle, my grandparents. I'm going to come here and I'm going to give you the time that, that I, contracted to give you. And then I'm out, and I'm not thinking about you any time that I'm not contracted to think about you. And I'm not saying that every employee is like that, but there's a lot that are, and there's really nothing wrong with that. Why would you want somebody working when they aren't actually supposed to be working, going the extra mile? Because as you said, it's like when companies need to lay off, they laying folks off. They're not going to not do that. So this is one where I think you have a lot of hiring managers. You have a lot of people running these organizations. They feel one way about this. And you got a lot of people that work for these organizations that feel another way about it.
Especially, like you mentioned, and I'm not trying to harp on it, especially if the company fake cares about you. Like you mentioned, these companies want employers to be loyal. They want employers to just take whatever the company gets them. And these companies want these employers to be happy about it. Like you mentioned, our previous generations, our parents, our grandparents, that was the model that they followed. Now people are starting to realize, hey, there is more to me than my title. There is more to me than my occupation. There is more to me than how much you pay me to do this particular job. And those things lay outside of the company, whether it be being able to drop your kids off at school or pick them up for school, whether it be being able to stop in the middle of the day and go to a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment or a health screening, whatever the case may be. People are choosing those things because to them now, like you mentioned, this newer age, that is equally, if not as important. And these companies are so concerned, and they've got this grip so tight, trying to quote unquote control these employees. And they're like, no, we're not doing it anymore. Some of us are leaving. Some of us are starting their own businesses, which is a lot of happened under the pandemic. There are just some people it's just like, I don't care if I'm coming into the office or not. You are not going to get my undivided attention anymore because you don't value it. Because like we mentioned, as soon as numbers start looking rocky, you let me go. It's like you don't look at a spreadsheet and be like, oh, well, Terrance did this project and it brought in these many people versus Robb. He did this project and started. We both gone. They don't look at it like that. So it's almost like, why am I giving you all this, my time, my energy, and my effort when you're not giving me that back? So I'm gonna work at home until you tell me I can't, and then I may just leave.
Yeah, it's like if I were running an organization, I would much rather have my people believe that they're treated fairly, they're paid well, they're paid fairly for what they do, and they
Mhm.
actually like their job.
Right.
That we're not going to put these arbitrary rules in place. Well,
Mhm.
this is how we've always done it, so this is how we're going to continue to do it.
Right.
Um,
No research, no facts,
yeah,
no
it's
studies,
like,
no surveys.
how can we, if you are making it so that your employees want to work for you, they tend to work harder for you. It's just human nature.
Mhm. And
So
as things get more expensive, we're going to stop spending more money, which will require even less money to make on a job. So y'all better figure it
yeah,
out, because sooner or later you're going to try to say, all right, well, you need income. It's like, well, not really. I can live in a tiny house. I can revamp this school bus into a an RV. Of course, that's my kick on YouTube now. All I'm doing is watching people transform school buses, and they renovate old motor homes and coach buses and concert buses. They turning those into
yeah,
homes, and it's just like, oh man, I want to do that. I don't need to pay rent or a mortgage if I just flip this school bus. I bet.
yeah. It's funny that you say that. I just watched a video probably within the last week of where someone they took an old school bus and converted it into a motor home, and then the guy proposed to his girlfriend on top
Mhm,
of it once they
mhm.
got it finished. It was like, it's pretty cool, but it's like, man, that's first my first two
They,
cribs.
they could have
So
they could have
it's
did a
crazy.
little bit better on that paint job on that
The
bus.
outside, yeah, did not look it. The outside, so you saw the same one I saw. So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
outside
yeah.
did not, it was not commensurate with what they did on the inside, but the inside of that Joker looked glorious.
But also, not to get sidetracked, they put full home furnishings in that bus, a full kitchen, all this wood to decorate it. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, it's like, the bus is not going to be able to stop when you press on the brake, because it's going to be so heavy, because you got a full fridge, you got a full oven. I thought I saw a dishwasher in there. They got, a full all this stuff. They got like triple the amount of water under the bus. I'm like, all right, I ain't no engineer. I'm not a car manufacturer, but all that weight you're adding to that, y'all didn't improve. Y'all didn't get bigger brake pads, brake rotors. Y'all didn't upgrade the wheels. Y'all didn't add new tires. You cruising for a bruising, which led me to believe I think this is just a YouTube video, and I don't think they actually living in that, but it was entertaining
Yeah,
nonetheless.
it was entertaining. Like I said, but I'm just thinking back to my first couple cribs. It was nicer than both.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
So there's another big Google story that happened this past week, actually a couple weeks ago. The Google has been determined to be a monopoly when it comes to search, and the U.S. is now that they've said that Google, you are a monopoly. They are thinking about, how are we going to deal with you now that we know that this is what you are, and they are including potentially breaking up parts of Alphabet.
Mm,
So this is a big one. When you think about monopolies, you think of companies that are so big and have so much mass, and they do things to maintain the status quo
hmm.
that other organizations, other companies
Can't compete.
cannot compete.
Hmm.
So usually what you hear is that it's these big companies are doing this and the little guy can't compete. But when it comes to Google and search, the other companies that are as big as Google, in some cases that are bigger than Google, Microsoft is bigger than Google, a fair amount. So they
Hmm.
can't even come close to competing with Google with search, because of, Google was just, better, and they were so much better in the deals that they worked. So things that Google has done and why they were considered a monopoly: they dominate search. It's over, I think it's 92% of all
Hmm.
search, and it's like 95.6% of search on mobile. How do you do that? Well, let's give Samsung and Apple a couple $1 billion every year for decade.
And that,
And and some are estimating Apple's, like the last go round, they may have given them anywhere from like 15 to $20 billion.
and low key, I think that was in part. This is me speculating. I think Google just given Apple specifically whatever they wanted was probably to stop Apple from creating their own search engine, which now fast forward that the US is the State Department, whomever is thinking about breaking up Alphabet as it relates to search. Word on the street is Apple may be getting into the search game and creating their own search engine. That's just rumors, that's just speculation. But word on the street is that now that their competition in the market may be a little bit easier now that Google may be broken up, you will start to see more players. I'm pretty sure Bing is going to get better, leaps and bounds. Microsoft is going to put some more attention to that, and new competitors may enter the market, like Apple, for example.
Or OpenAI. OpenAI launched a few weeks ago. I don't think it's
Hmm.
been a month yet. They
Hmm.
launched their Search GPT.
Hmm.
So this is a new take on search where it's not a search engine, it's an AI. It's a chat bot where you go and you ask your question there, and it gives it back.
Hmm.
And initially, it's clean. It's giving you a link, it's giving you citations, and there's no advertising. Google makes its money off of advertising next to all the stuff that you search for. So it is going to be really interesting to see, number one, how does the federal government say, Google, this is how you can now operate? If I'm old enough to remember when the government told Microsoft that it was a monopoly, and and force some things down on to Microsoft. And if we go back in time, Microsoft is still, when it comes
Hmm.
to computers, they still are the biggest software company in the world. They are still Microsoft, but they felt it. Money was different for a few years after all those changes went into place. So it's going to be really interesting to see how how Google deals with this, because although Google does a lot, they have Android and they have their Google Workspace, which is like their cloud services and all that kind of stuff. Even though they have all this other stuff, I don't want to call them rounding errors, but they don't make the kind of money that search makes. That is where Google makes the lion's share of its money, is through its AdWords program. And they are a search engine, and they're going to allow you to buy search terms and have your results come up inorganically. This is where you're paying to have your stuff show up next to the top search results. And if they start breaking that stuff up, it doesn't take Bing to get 50% market share.
Hmm.
I don't know that they ever will. They have less than probably 2 or 3% right now. It's very low. But can they go from 2 or 3 to 10 or 12?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Because when you start talking about that, if they're now getting that money that's not going to Google, that's billions of dollars that is not going to Google. That's going to change how Google operates. If DuckDuckGo was able to get a few percent more than they have right now, Google, and I fully expect Google will still be the dominant search player for the foreseeable future. Definitely in this decade, probably into the 2030s. But are they going to be 95% of search? I don't think that that's going to be the case after the government gets done with them.
Well, speaking of DuckDuckGo, they offered their insights on what or how Google needs to be broken up. And this is their suggestions. The company said that the government should ban the agreements that make Google search engine the default option on devices. We already talked about Apple, Google just giving Apple billions of dollars just to make Google quote unquote default on the iPhones. It goes on to say, give others access to Google search and as knowledge, present screens that allow people to change search engines easily, and educate the public about the process of picking a new search engine. These are just suggestions by DuckDuckGo, but of course, DuckDuckGo has positioned itself as one of the companies that was hurt as a result of the government allowing Google to spread its, quote unquote, it's a monopoly far and wide.
Yeah. And, not to carry any water for a company like DuckDuckGo, but they absolutely were hurt by Google, because Google is paying Samsung and Apple and other companies billions of dollars more than what DuckDuckGo makes. So DuckDuckGo
Mhm.
can't compete with that. So it is going to be interesting. And as I said, I fully expect that Google is still going to be the dominant search player. I mean, to Google something is now a verb. It means when you're talking to people who have used computers for the last 30 some odd years, When you say Google something, they know that means to go search for something. Even if you're using, you can tell somebody to Google something on Bing. That is how pervasive the word is at this point. You know, it is everywhere. People understand what you mean by that when you say that. So I don't see that changing. But if they are no longer the default, if they're no longer giving Apple and other companies billions of dollars to be the default,
if it's not a second thought,
yeah, if it's easy for you to change, and we talked about this last week, when you use something and it works, there's really no reason for you to change it. But Google is stacking the deck by saying, we're going to make sure that the thing that you use that we know works because we're the best at this is just a default. So there's really no reason for you to ever go and change it. And now what will happen is that you'll have other people go and look and say, oh, let me check this DuckDuckGo out. Oh, this is pretty nice. I'll just use this, and it'll just stick and it'll stay. And it won't be one of those things where they upgrade or they get a new PC and it's just no longer the default. They can just click a checkbox and get back to the thing that they were using. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Google navigates through all of this. And just on another note, I don't think we talked about this last week, but Google is also on the monopoly front, is just their, the App Store. So, that's part of this as well. And you actually had a judge last week that said, hey, Google, you are a monopoly. We're going to, I'm paraphrasing, but we're going to make you feel some pain. It's like, it's not going to just be however you want it to be to address these concerns. We are going to make it easier for developers in the case of app stores to get their apps out there. And it might cost you something in order for that to happen. So, I don't want to say that the hammer is coming down on Google, but it might be, it might be little, a lot of little knocks on Google here in the coming, and this is probably going to be over the coming years. It's going to take them to get through court and figure out everything that they're happening. But I think it is safe to say that at least when it comes to Google search, the way that it looks today, it will not look like that tomorrow.
Nope. But it won't be no time soon. We got some time.
Yeah. So Terrance, this next story here is, one that you stuck in here about Google taking hackers to court. What can you tell us about what's going on there?
Well, so basically what's happening is hackers are leaking, accessing Google's information. They are hacking their data. And for the most part, Google has kind of left them alone. Really hasn't. They've, tried to patch holes, any things that hackers find. Google's efforts have been to just patch the holes, put out release their new patch findings and keep it pushing. But now it seems like Google is fed up with that. And now they're like, nah, we ain't got time for that. So what we're going to start doing is, according to Google, in addition to Google, several big tech companies have pursued affirmative litigation, though not necessarily under the name and with varying strategies. So basically they are suing these hackers and winning settlements from them. Now, of course, Google's not going to pass that those settlements on to, the actual public, for the most part, not yet anyway. But as of right now, leaders of Google security and legal teams tell Wired, which is where we found the story, they believe going after people in court has paid off. Google hasn't yet lost a case. It has collected almost all of the more $2 million that it has won through the legal process and forced hundreds of companies or websites to shut down. The award's trivial, of course, to Google and its parent company Alphabet, which is a $2 trillion company, but can be devastating for the defendants. The story goes and mentions a specific case. It said let me find the a security team that discovered that Google unwittingly was enabling the spread of malicious software known as Glooptiba. The malware had corrupted more than 1 million Windows computers, turning them into vehicles to mine cryptocurrency and to spy on users by hijacking Google accounts, purchasing Google ads to lure in users, and misusing Google Cloud tools. The hackers behind the operation were on their way to infecting even more computers until Google cracked down on them and actually took them to court and actually won,
right?
According to this $2 million. So just wanted to get your take. Are we going to see more companies going to start suing hackers, or are they just going to continue and just come up with better ways to deter them from accessing altogether?
Yes, you're going to see more.
Okay.
And I don't know that it'll be the software companies themselves that are doing the suing. They
Hmm.
may contract with a law firm that works on their behalf. And
Hmm.
it's like, go out and sue them. If you win the case, you get to keep 70, 80% of it. Because
Hmm.
as you said, Google is a $2 trillion company. In the time we've been talking, they've made $2 million probably 20, 30 times.
Right.
So the amount that they're winning is of no consequence to them. What they're doing is that we're not just going to patch our, patch our infrastructure so that you can no longer set up these botnets and do this. Once we know that it is you, we're going to come after you and sue you out of existence, or sue you to you just no longer have the capability to do these kind of things.
Hmm.
And as you said, the key thing that stuck out to me when I read this story is that they're batting 1,000. They have won every single case.
Yep.
And it is, it's not just Google, but these companies, there are dozens, if not hundreds of them that have been sued, and they've all lost. So are we going to see that continue? Absolutely. Because once again, Google is not in this for the money. They're in it to keep the companies that are doing this from doing it to them again, because
Right.
Google loses way more when they have to go out and tell Earth that, hey, this malware, we pushed it out unknowingly, and here's what you got to do to go patch your computers. And you may have been unwittingly contributing to somebody's network to mine crypto.
And
That's way more destructive to them than them potentially losing a case and not getting $300,000 for that they would sue some organization for.
yeah, but
So
one of the things that Google is also doing is not necessarily hitting hackers that is hacking into Google, but just people who are using Google services not according to the terms. Like, for instance, Google has filed complaints against five similar allegedly scammy marketers. So not necessarily illegal to be scammy, but it's just like Google's like, yeah, we ain't even letting y'all use our tools wrong. A Florida business and its owners agreed to pay Google $850,000, and a Los Angeles man who allegedly posted 14,000 fake reviews on Google Maps has agreed to stop. Terms of the third deal with the Illinois company were not disclosed, but Google spokesperson says it was involved in a seven-figure payment to Google. Now, according to Google, they say they are donating that money to good causes, whatever the case may be. But imagine you trying to trick the Google system in order to get a leg up for your business, and you get a knock on the door from Google saying, hey, you need to come with us to court, and you got to pay Google $850,000 because you was trying to game Google Maps. I don't know about you, but that's going to stop me from doing anything
well,
wrong on
that's the
Google.
point. They're saying that doing this, going after these folks that are violating their terms of service, or straight up, creating bot networks on their, on their infrastructure. They're saying that by suing them and winning the cases, it will be a bigger deterrent than just taking them down. Because if the only penalty is that you get caught and your stuff gets taken down, there's nothing to keep you from. Well, the organizations that are doing this are doing it because they ultimately are gaming the system to make some money, here and there. So if you take their ability to make money away, they'll go try to figure something else out. But if you go and say, not only are we going to take your ability to make money away, we're going to come after the money you've already made and put you out of business, that's something different, and will make companies think differently about, do we want to do this stuff that is in the very, very dark gray area.
But that'll show up on Google's radar now.
Exactly. So I can't say that I am mad at Google. I know some people are going to say, oh, you got these big giant corporations that are going after these small mom and pop companies. It's like, no, these small mom and pop companies that are doing these things are scamming people. They are not legitimate organizations. Which is probably one of the reasons why Google's batting 1,000 on this. So
because it's rampant and it's in their face. For instance, I'm just gonna read this other one. In 2022, Google won a default judgment against an individual in Cameroon who never responded to charges that he was using Gmail to scam people into paying for fake puppies, including a $700 basset hound. After the lawsuit, the complaints about the scammer dried up. So either the dude stopped doing the fake stuff, or finally use his big brain to do something legal, like actually sell legal puppies. It's like Google had to knock on your door for you to do the right thing. But again, like you said, it's working.
Yeah, I fully expect we're going to see more of this because it's working.
Hmm.
There's no reason for it not to be. And as I said, in some of these cases, it might actually be Google's legal team, but it's probably a representative of Google's legal team that's not actually Google that is working on these cases. And all they do is work on these cases.
Hmm.
And then, whatever you win, you get 80% of it. Or I don't know what the financial relationship is, but let's just say that the law
They ain't doing
firms
it
that
pro
are
bono.
winning these cases are not going broke anytime soon.
Yeah, they ain't doing pro bono work because
Right.
they like it.
No, they are definitely not doing that. So, Terrance, this last story that we're going to talk about is arguably the biggest one. And we purposely put it last because we're going to actually give folks instructions on things that they should be doing. So, I'll just go ahead and read the headline here. Almost 2.9 billion records of personal information for people in the United States were leaked on a hacking forum exposing names, social security numbers, all known physical addresses and possible aliases, as well as social security numbers. So, say that in less words. There's a company called National Public Data that they got hacked, and they actually confirmed today that 2.9 billion records were stolen. And the big things here, they got your social security number, they have your date of birth, they have your address, they have your telephone numbers in some cases, they have your email addresses, they have a lot of information. When you think about 2.9 billion records and there's only 370, 380 million people floating around the United States, they got a whole lot of stuff on a whole lot of people. So I have actually run my name through, there is a website. It is called npd.pentester.com. And when you go to that link, you can enter your name, your state, and your date of birth, and it will come back and let you know if your data shows up in this in this hack. Sadly to say, chances are it probably does, because they have gotten social security number information. They have gotten, address information going back over 30 years. So for me personally, I am looking at places that I have not lived since I was a teenager.
Hmm.
In some cases that, I was 12 is, I think, was the last time I lived in one of these addresses. So it is, there is a heck of a lot of data that has been stolen. And you, as folks who are listening to the sound of Terrance and I's voice right now, there are things that you're probably going to want to do to protect yourself. One of them is heading over to npd.pentester.com. All of these links will be put in our show notes, so you can head over to our show notes and look at them there. But npd.pentester.com, that'll show you whether or not you actually show up in the breach data. And then if you do, you're going to want to probably do something like put a freeze on your credit. And you will need to do this at each of the three credit reporting agencies. So you're going to need to do this at Equifax, at Experian, and at TransUnion. And we'll have links in our show notes as well that will take you directly to each one of those sites where you can freeze for free your credit. So it'll keep anyone who has this data from trying to take out a credit card or try to get credit in your name, fraudulently. So once
which
again,
which
go
is
ahead.
just one way that people can mess with your personal information. Yeah, people are all concerned about, oh, it's gonna mess up my credit. No, they can actually like rent out apartments in your name, all
Right.
the things. Scammers, they're smart. They know all the things that they can do with your identity that won't throw up a flag against either major credit card bureaus or the government or the state or whatever the case may be. So yes, you should be definitely concerned about your credit. But also, again, this is my whole point, right? What can you really do as a person when every time you go anywhere and do something, they want your information, right? And it was different 40, 50 years ago when your name, birth date, social security number, your address was in a file cabinet somewhere, right? At somebody's physical
Mm.
address. It ain't like that no more. Your
Mm-mm.
information is stored in the cloud on a server. Probably every time you have signed up for a streaming service, anytime you've, of course, we're talking about mortgages, obviously, car notes, going to school, going to college, those are the obvious things. But anytime you have signed up for to get rewards for a free sandwich at your local, favorite shop, that information is stored somewhere and is being hacked on a regular basis. I say once a month, if not twice a month, we on the show are reporting about some data breach, some data hack, and it's always something different. It's the airlines. Now, in this case, it's your when if you had a background check done for a job and it ran through this national public data website, that information is up there. Next is going to be, anytime you signed up for, COVID, like you got COVID, that information is stored somewhere and got hacked. So it's almost like there's nothing we can do in our highly technological, you know, um, in our era, that's this super technological age. There's nothing we can do to say, all right, going forward, how can I stop my data from being hacked? You can't. It's already hacked. It's
Yes,
already hacked.
it's yeah. So, like I said,
So it's just
the,
defeatist, I guess.
the
My thought is just I just feel defeated. And there's nothing I can do because I need to go get a car. I need to go get a HELOC. I need to go do home renovations. I need to send my kid to college. All that requires me to give up my data. And it's just like I can't not give up my data. That means I can't get no new car. I can't send my kid to college.
so it is relatively quick and easy to lock your credit. You just have to go 3 different places and do it. So as I said, we will have links for it. That is the first thing that you should do. Check to see if your data was hacked. Like I said, unfortunately, chances are it probably was. They got almost 3 billion records, 2.9 billion. The number keeps going up. When we heard about this story last week, it was 2.7 billion. MPD came out today and confirmed that, yes, they were hacked. This is the information that was infiltrated, and it was not 2.7 billion. It was 2.9 billion records. So, I mean, that's almost 10 billion, or that's what is that? That's 10 records for every adult in the United States that was gone. And as I said, they have all kinds of stuff: your places you've lived, telephone numbers, email addresses, and most importantly, social security numbers. So you are going to want to go and and just protect yourself at some level, saying that, well, if they get everybody's data, there's really nothing that I should be doing. No, there's folks who are not going to do anything, and they're going to get hemmed up months from now because the data's there, and hackers and scammers do what hackers and scammers do. Let's try this number and see if it works. Now, it's going to take them a long time to go through 2.9 billion things if they were doing it individually, but they're not. They're doing it with the use of computers, and they got a big old spreadsheet right now that has literally everybody's social security number in it. So just take this as a public service announcement. You do want to go and protect yourself by freezing those accounts if your data does show up at inside of this hack. The question is, well, how does a company like NPD, National Public Data, how do they actually get all of this data? Well, here's what they do. They essentially are a data warehouse where they go out and they collect and sell access to personal data for use in background checks. So anytime that you've ever had a background check run, there's a good chance that it is run through a company like National Public Data. And because they hold on to this data, if it gets hacked, now your information has been hacked and it is out there in the wild. And as I said, the way that the articles were written over the weekend, that were written late last week when this thing went down, when we found out what happened, because the initial hack didn't just happen in the last week. It happened back in the spring, and some court cases and stuff has brought some stuff out. But the fact that they have this data, and now Earth knows that this data is out there and is easily findable, you want to do something to protect yourself. And I don't know, are we going to start seeing maybe laws put into place to where data warehouses like this can't exist? I don't know that that's the answer, because data is we're never going to go to small data. We're never going to get to a point to where there's less data than there was before. There will always be more of it.
True.
So
But
I'm not certain how they're going to mitigate against this kind of stuff from happening.
Right. But you make perfect sense. Right. But the story goes on to say, oh, here's the things you can do to protect your data and finances. Do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. You know what this reminds me of? when a woman, she is, I don't know, going somewhere late at night, and we say, all right, here's what you got to do to protect yourself. Put some keys in your fist and make some brass knuckles, and make sure your head is on a swivel, and make sure you don't park in a dark space, and when you get in the car, make sure you look your head in and make sure nobody's in the back seat. And if you get in the car, just hurry up and turn the car on and leave. Don't sit there on your phone. Don't get on the phone. Don't stroll through social media. Don't get on your phone to talk to somebody. Get in your car, pull off, right? Instead of saying, you know what, if you are ever caught, are charged and found guilty of harassing a woman, you need to go to jail for the rest of your life. This reminds me of that, because they're telling us what we have to do to protect their data. We haven't heard anything about National Public Data or whomever this company is getting sued to oblivion. Of course, it's early, so that stuff will still come. But I guarantee you the government's going to be like, your company now has to shut down and we got to figure out something else. That's not going to happen. So it's almost like you're putting the whole burden of protecting my data on me, when in order for me to do business, I have to share my data with you. So why don't you, the other company, equally as responsible for shutting down my data? Now, of course, companies got password encryptions and this and that and this and that and the third, but it keeps happening to a clip to where it's safe to assume that these companies are not doing everything that they could be doing to protect their data. I don't know if they're cost cutting for savings. I don't know if they just don't have the talent there to actually seriously look into protecting the data. But whatever the case may be, the equal share of responsibility is not being put on these companies that are losing my data. Hell, I've got data and I can keep it protected better than these companies are. It's like, why, but these companies are making trillions of dollars and I'm not. So it's just almost like, all right, when are we going to share the burden of this responsibility when data is so important in our everyday lives?
Yeah, and I know you're not actually looking for a question.
It's rhetorical.
Yes, rhetorical. You're not looking for an answer to the question, but never. And yes, we have to protect ourselves, because here is the thing. If you, and I'm just going to give you the example. If I know your name, your address, your email address, and your social security number, I can go and, I can go out and try to get a credit card on that. I can go out and try to go, get a lease on an apartment, because what those organizations are going to do is like, oh, here's the information. Let's run it and see if there's any reason not to. If you got good credit, it's going to come back. Oh yeah, here's a new credit card. Here's keys to an apartment, so on and so forth. They're going to do those things. If you, however, say, well, there's a good chance that my data has been, has been caught up in all of this hacking, and I go and I lock my credit, well, then no one's going to be able to go get a credit card. No one's going to be able to go into Lowe's, sign up for a Lowe's card, buy a whole bunch of stuff on it, and then because if it's locked, it can't happen. So I don't want to, put it out there that, well, just put your hands up and don't do anything. The ostrich in the sand, approach to your data is not a good way to go about it. And Terrance, I absolutely understand your frustration and your consternation with this. But here's the thing. I've had many security people, and having done some security stuff in my career long time ago, I know that organizations, we don't know. There will definitely be a postmortem from MPD that's going to come out, and they're going to tell you exactly what happened. People are going to be upset because regardless of what happened, and they're upset and it shouldn't happen. But they may have been doing everything right, and they just got, because here's the thing. The organization has to be right every time. The hacker only has to be right once. So it is, when you have organizations where they are, you've got someone, I'm just going to try this. Didn't work. Nope. Let me go try something else. Didn't work. Nope. Let me go try something else. Where the organization has to, well, we need to try to figure out how to mitigate everything. And there's just some things that they may not have, come up with. I don't know that is going to be the case. We could turn around and hear that MPD had the most lax security on earth, and lawyers are going to come after them. It's probably, I probably shouldn't say that, because lawyers are going to go after this company no matter what the reason was, because that's what lawyers do. But they only have to be wrong once, and they need to be right every time. But if they're wrong once, that means that hacker may have only been right once. So yeah, so we still need to do the things we need to do. So I strongly recommend that you go over to let me pull these links up again. You go over to npd.pentester.com and just see if your data was hacked. And if it was, you want to head over to Equifax. You want to head over to Experian. You want to head over to TransUnion. And right now, they know that this is such a big deal that if you just go to their pages, right there on the front page of each of the three of these credit reporting agencies, they have links where you can go and you can do a freeze. Now, you do want to be careful because they may try to sell you some services. You don't need to, freezing your credit is a free thing. It's not something you need to pay for. Each one of these companies offers things that, well, we if you pay us $89.99 a month or a year or whatever the case is, they can give you some additional things. I'm not necessarily recommending that you go do that. I'll allow you to do that research. What I am recommending is that if your social security number has come up in this MPD hack and you can see that it has, you want to go lock your you want to go lock your credit reports at all three places just to protect yourself. It is relatively easy to do. This is one of the areas where I feel bad for people who are not technically savvy, who don't just know how to whip out their cell phone and head over to a website and follow prompts and do things like that, because you're probably going to have a lot of Americans who just don't have the technical know-how to go and do this, and they may need some assistance with it. So particularly if you've got some older family members or something like that you don't think that they may actually know how to go to TransUnion or Equifax or Experian and lock or freeze their credit, you might want to call them up and give them a hand, because like I said, this is just one of those things to where the data is out there and hackers are going to do what hackers do. If it's out there and they can use it, they're going to try, because it doesn't cost them anything. It doesn't cost them anything unless they get caught. It doesn't cost them anything to try, but the benefits could be so great. The payoff is so great. That's why they do it. So as I said, we left this to last because we wanted to make sure that, we did it as a public service announcement and let folks know. I'm just going to put it out here one last time, mpd.pentester.com. And at the bottom, if you go to that link, mpd.pentester.com, if you go there and you find yourself, they actually have links to TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax right there on that website as well. And once again, you can head over to our show notes and we've got the links there.
That's so nice of them for doing that. After losing my data, so nice of them.
Yeah,
that's so very nice.
Yeah, here's a link. That. You can come lock your stuff up. So yeah, man, it's like when I heard this, it's like, seriously. And the way, Terrance, that the articles are written is like hackers may have stole everyone's data.
Mm-hmm.
They literally stole everyone's data. It's like, NPD had records going back over 30 years for anyone who was run credit checks in the last 30 some odd years.
Well, I wonder if, and I haven't done any research into it, I wonder if they are displaying like this pen tester website that you mentioned. Now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if they are just displaying the data that the company has on you and not particularly the data that the hackers stole in this recent or not recent, in the recently reported hack. And I have to do some research to figure that out, because I was looking on the website and I didn't find anything particular for me as a Georgia resident, but me as an Indiana resident, me as a Maryland resident, me as a Nashville resident, just all the places I've lived in my years, all my addresses came up. And I'm curious I want to know if that is just data that the company has on me, or is it data that was actually stolen from their database?
No, this is data that was actually stolen from their database. So pen tester has access to what was stolen. And what they're essentially doing is they're running a search against that data. And so that's why you have to put in your name, your state, and your date of birth. Those are the three things that, that you stick in. And if those three things match up in their database, they're returning results that are actually coming from the database. Now they're obfuscating it. They're not putting full addresses. They're not even doing like last 4 digits of social security. I think they're only doing the last 2 digits of your social security number. But if the data is in the hack, pen tester is showing you that your data is showing up in this hack and that you need to go do something about it.
Just great.
Yeah, as I said, it was a big week for tech. That is our biggest story, but we left it to last because we wanted to make sure that we could tell folks to go do this. And what I imagine right now is that if people are hearing about this for the first time, they are stopped listening and they're going, they're heading right over to go check this stuff out. I recommend you do that. But we are at the end of the show. We did not have any new patrons this week. We've had I think 3 or 4 weeks in a row. This is the first week probably in the last 4 weeks that we haven't had a new patron. But I do want to let folks know that if you would like to support the Tech Jawn, one of the best ways to do that is by becoming a patron. You can head over to thetechjawn.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. And we have multiple tiers over there. Any one of those tiers will get you access to our live stream and after party. So the Tech Jawn, in addition to being a podcast, is a live stream that we give access to our patrons to. Any patron has the ability to go and watch us record the show live, as well as hang out with us in the after party that we do after we record the show. Also, there's a couple of tiers over there that will get you access to an ad-free stream. So you actually get an RSS directly from Patreon that you can put into your podcatcher, listen to the show without any of our pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll ads. That's benefit that you get for a couple of the tiers over there as well. So once again, anyone who's interested in supporting the show that way can do so by heading over to thetechjawn.com/Patreon, and anything that you can do to support the show goes a long way, and we appreciate you for it. So with that being said, Brother Tech, tell folks how they can get at you.
Yeah, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we're also at the Tech Jawn, the Tech JAWN on all the things. So come holler at us however you holler until we meet again in a week's time. Peace.